Stocks, bonds, ETFs, straight out of downtown Chicago. This is Zach's Market Edge.
Welcome to Zach's Market Edge, the podcast about investing in your life. I'm your host, Tracy Reinick, and this week I'm joined by David Bartosiak, Zach's strategist, and he's also the editor of Momentum Trader and Home Run Investor. And today we're discussing a topic that's near and dear to Dave's heart, and actually also mine. I'm into this area, and it's all about the auto industry. Specifically, 2015, we had record North American auto sales of about 17.5 million, and everybody was basically saying, this is peak auto, we're done, this is the highest we're ever going to see. Everybody's bought their new car, even their used car, it's over, see you later in 2016. And a lot of the stocks, auto stocks, all pulled back, everybody's all doom and gloom. But now we've had January and February monthly auto sales coming in. And I do have to say, Dave, these February numbers were even better than I thought they could be. So now there's these questions about, the peak auto thesis. Maybe we're all wrong, and the American consumer is going to keep going. The fleet buying is going to continue, and the auto stocks look cheap. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, you start peeling back the layers of this onion, and you realize that the argument of, oh, it's at a record, so it can't keep going,
right, is
just like a crotchety, angry old man argument that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so you think it's different this time, or that the fleet was so old, it's still averaging 11 years.
Yeah,
it's
11.4 years old.
Yes, so...
And we talk about this a lot. Take a car from 2005 and compare it to a car today, and it's just light years difference. So I tricked my parents into getting a Chevy Colorado, a 2016 Chevy Colorado.
This was in 2015.
This just happened. This is like November.
Okay.
Which is another thing too. I mean, because the Colorado is not a full size pickup truck; it's a mid-size pickup truck. Which will tie in a little bit if we start talking kind of crossovers.
Right.
I know the pickup truck is not a crossover, but
right,
just this kind of inner genre, right, of a mid-sized pickup. So they got this thing, and when you think pickup, you think like shotgun racks and like all-wheel drive, and I'm going mudding, right?
Yeah.
But this thing is like pristine luxury interior with a touchscreen navigation. It's got a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot, Pandora. Just all the bells and whistles. Satellite. It's hooked up to the OnStar. And it's just awesome. It's awesome. It's super easy to drive. You sit up nice and high so you can see the road and everything. My mom likes driving it, and we had to just tear the keys of her 1998 Dodge Durango out of her hand, because she didn't want to give it up. And then, she got in this thing and just forget about it here,
Yeah.
So it's just night and day comparing 11-year-old cars to the cars of today. There's just so many more creature comforts they're just awesome.
Let's talk about what happened in February, because you kind of bring it up here when, you're talking about this mid-sized truck, because it was the SUVs and the trucks that were the big sellers. Again, they were also the big sellers in 2015, but February, super hot again. I have some of the individual data. So Ford, they saw sales up 20.4% in February. That was higher than what Edmunds.com was estimating at 17%. Their F-Series, again, up 10%, the best since 2006. That's the truck, but we've seen the trucks be hot. Some of those truck buyers, too, I find this is a good sign for the economy, because a lot of them are the construction workers,
Sure.
The small business guys are buying.
Yep.
And then their overall Ford numbers, this was their best February since 2000. Of course, we also had the extra leap day in there, which does help a bit. You think the one day doesn't matter, but it does. But still, it's still really good. And, SUV sales doing well for them. Then you had Fiat Chrysler. That was a 12% gain. Jeep had its best February ever. The Ram pickup truck also had its best February ever. Toyota up 5.2%. Its strong was the RAV4 compact SUV. That's really hot, or crossover, as some people call it. That's a really hot market. That was up 16%, but the 4Runner midsize SUV was up 32%, and then the Tacoma midsize pickup truck up 14.5%. So these are, like, again, super hot numbers. I looked at Honda. They were up 12.8%, but it did look like their sedans were among their hotter cars. The Civic was up 32. The Accord was up 19%. I didn't see what the CRV, like the crossover SUVs, but that's been a hot seller for them too. Nissan up 10.5%, but their luxury brand Infiniti was actually down 11%. So
Right. And one thing about Nissan is the Rogue, which is their crossover SUV.
yeah.
Up 26%.
Wow.
On the
Okay.
Rogue.
So that adds on to this little
It's a crossover. It's a
Right.
crossover SUVs. So what's happening is people are getting out of their midsize sedans. So while auto sales were up again this year, midsize sales were down 3.4%.
Okay. So that would be like the Accord, the midsize, right? Is that or the Camry? Camry? Maybe?
Yeah. Technically, I think those are midsize.
Okay.
And then like the Impalas of the world, right? Those kind of things. Because now what they're doing with the crossover is like, okay, we're just going to take that same platform of the midsize car and add a lot more space to it and sit you up higher. So you're getting the handling that you would get inside of these midsize cars. And now with the advances in technology as far as, MPGs are concerned, right? You're getting better gas mileage than you did on that 11-year-old midsize sedan. You're getting a nicer overall car, all the creature comforts. So I think that's part of the reason why you're getting a huge jump in those kind of sales.
Yeah, people like sitting higher up. I know I do.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Maybe it's because I spend my whole life standing higher than most people. So sitting up higher doesn't, it doesn't do it for me. I'd rather be low and fast.
Now, I went to the Chicago Auto Show for the first time in over 20 years. I used to go a lot back in the day, but I hadn't been for about 20 years. And I was looking at the crossover SUVs by all the brands. And, by the middle of the day I went, I was waiting in line to get in to sit inside one, which just kind of seems strange to me. And these are just
Right.
like the Honda and, these are like the normal brands. I wasn't waiting in line to get in the Maserati SUV or anything,
Right,
or the
just a
Porsche one or
regular-
something like that. These are just like the regular Hyundai or, Buick. And that seemed like a really hot car. Like people were definitely looking as if they were buying.
Well, they are.
I know.
I mean,
and these numbers
they
are
just
showing this.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to stop. I guess I do have to bring up some of the bearish argument, though, because I don't want to totally
Yes,
brush
there
those
is
off
another
as just a bunch
side.
of old curmudgeons, right?
Right.
There is, you could argue, a bubble in the subprime auto financing right now.
Right. Basically, anyone who breathes can go in there and
Yes.
get a car.
Can you fog a mirror? Yes.
Yeah.
You get a new car, 0 down, no problem. 23.6% of all new auto loans are subprime right now. And I think the subprime in the auto world is like under a 650 credit score
Yeah.
or something like that.
And aren't these loans a lot? Well, even the non-subprime, I mean, they're stretching them out so long in order to make that payment affordable now.
Yeah, because these cars are more and more expensive.
Yeah, I've noticed.
So it's good when you get the 0 down, right? So then you can stretch that out.
Yeah.
But or 0% financing because
financing.
of how low rates have been. But yeah, I've seen 84-month loans being
Me too.
Advertised, which I guess if you're going to keep your car 11 years, right, then that makes sense. That you're going to pay for it for 7 years, maybe. But that's a long time to
Really
have
long.
an auto loan on a single car.
But that's not worrying you still.
It doesn't. No. It doesn't bother me because nobody keeps their car that long anyway. I mean, if there's like the people who buy cars who are okay, so there's me, right? It's like
Right.
that's why I didn't go to the auto show because I would have messed around and traded something in and bought another car. I have a problem, so I wanted to stay away from all the new cars that were out there. But for the most part, if you're buying a new car today, I just don't know who are these people who are going to hold this new car. Who's going to have a 2016, Honda CRV and keep it for 12 years?
I don't know.
And
I
these
mean, I
numbers
had
keep
my
going
last
up.
car for 19 years.
Right. Well,
but I was
you're a
weird.
little, you're,
I'm weird.
well, you're different than I am. That's for sure. But this fleet number, I think, is just like a function of technology, though, because I was looking back to like the 60s, and it was like 5 years on average that people would keep it, and this number has been increasing. So when they say they don't make them like they used to, maybe that's not true.
Yeah.
You know, so this fleet just keeps increasing in age. I don't know if that's I don't know if that number is going to change. I think the people who want new cars are still going to trade in their new cars every 3, 4, or 5 years.
What about the argument, and this is on the bearish side too, that the person who's buying right now, they're not going to keep it 12 years because by then we're going to have the autonomous cars and all of this will just, someone obviously will be making the autonomous cars,
Right.
but you're not going to be driving your own car that you're buying right now 12 years from now because this whole thing is going to change.
Well, I mean, there's definitely going to be a shift away from people buying cars, I think. But that I kind of lumped that in the same argument that people thought that all of a sudden everybody was going to use Peapod and no one was going to go to the grocery store, right? And we're all just going to be these homebodies. There's something about having your own car and that freedom of just being able to get up and go and do whatever you want. That, especially with the millennials, right? So people are saying the millennials aren't going to buy as many cars and all this, and they're going to live in the city and whatever. Fine, let them do that. Doesn't matter. You still have plenty of the country where people do not have access to public transportation like we do in the big cities here, who need to have those cars and those trucks. So I don't think that those sales are going to just disappear.
Right.
Plus, another 6 years from now, we're going to have 35% of the cars are going to be electric. So you're going to buy a new car. Again, it's going to happen.
Right. That's a whole nother scene too.
You can't, the innovation that's going to come is definitely going to drive more people towards, new cars. Again, it just keeps happening over and over again. I don't think it's just going to die and go by the wayside, because millennials like to be emo and use Uber and
right.
No.
Right, which is practical in some areas, but not, as you said, in others. Like if I'm living in Houston, I still probably need that car. If I'm living in Los Angeles, the same thing.
Right.
If I'm in New York, I never had a car anyways.
Right.
So, yeah. One other bearish thing I've seen kind of bandied about is this incentives. And they said that they were up in February. So that could be driving some of these really great February sales. They were up about $250 over February of last year, but I also saw that the average price was also up $700 year over year. So it doesn't seem like, that's
They give and they
really,
take.
yeah.
Yeah. There's so many different ways where you can get ripped off at the car dealership. Where, I don't want to say ripped off, but I mean, they're going to make their money.
Yeah.
They're going to make their money either way. It doesn't matter. There's so many different variables that they use, where they can get money out of you. So yeah, it's like back in the day, a lot of these, like annuity companies used to have bonuses like, oh, give us your annuity. Here's a 10% bonus on your capital. It's like, yeah, you honestly believe that they're just giving you 10% for nothing? No, they've increased your annual operating expense by 1.5% to make up for it. So, they give with one hand, but they take away with the other. So, and that's how they're doing it. $700 more for the car. So who cares if I give you incentive on it? Doesn't matter.
Right. I did notice at the auto show that almost every car I sat in, even just the run of the mill, had those nice leather seats and various other very nice interiors, which they're going to have because they're trying to promote it. But that's also not the base model. So
Right.
I got kind of used to it, though. I was like, wow, I should get something with the leather seats now.
Well, you should.
I know, because I'm sitting in all of the ones that they had there. But that's good marketing on their end, obviously.
I don't think every car I've ever bought, well, that I've ever bought personally, I had leather.
Well, yeah, but you're in the sports. You buy some sporty cars.
I know.
Those
So
better
I made
have
sure I got
leather.
the leather in there.
Yeah.
Leather with suede inserts in some of them. That way you
Wow.
don't slide around when you're going around those corners too fast.
Are these the kind of seats that also don't they have like air that comes out, like they air condition them or whatever?
So-
Not just the heated ones, but
Yeah. Okay, I have a 2004 Infiniti M45 that I bought that had cooled and heated seats in
Wow.
it. So think about how long ago that was.
that was cutting edge.
It was. Well, the Japanese tend to do that.
Okay.
Where you have, the luxury cars that have all the bells and whistles kind of well ahead of that, had adaptive cruise control too. 340 horsepower. Anyway. But that's just now starting to kind of go more mainstream, where you have that option and kind of all cars. They didn't have that option. We needed to, I think, get a total different trim package to get that in the Colorado,
Okay.
and it was like another $3,000 or something.
Right.
And while it is great in the summertime to have a nice, cool, gentle breeze on your lower back,
Yeah.
um, it's not worth $3,000.
Well, it might be if you're in Arizona or somewhere like that.
True,
So,
but not in Chicago.
depends.
It's like
Yeah.
you could, but it is great if you do have a chance
Yeah.
to get ventilated front seats. It is
Okay.
amazing.
Okay, so speaking of that, how do we play this as stock investors? Because one of the companies that I know I like as an investment is Lear, which makes the automotive seats. I don't know if they make those ones in particular, but they do make the seating systems. They also do electronic systems. And so they're pretty well known, but they're cheap right now. They're trading at a little bit above 8 times because again, everyone thought we're at peak auto sales.
Right.
No one's going to be buying them, and we won't need as many of the parts. And but so far that's not been the case. So shares are cheap. I like Lear. I don't know if you know anything about them.
Yeah, a little bit, not too
Okay,
much.
that's one of the few parts guys. There's a lot of different parts companies you can be buying.
Right.
But that's one of the few that I do follow and I think is a good buy here. A few other areas you could kind of go is through the retail side. I do like some of the car retailers. People often forget about that aspect, that it's not, General Motors out there actually selling you the car direct.
Right.
It's these retailers.
Right.
And there's a couple big retail chains now. Some are still locally owned, family owned, that kind of thing. But one of the big ones I really do like is Lithia Motors. They're headquartered on the West Coast, but they've been slowly spreading out across the United States. And they kind of have a good combination of like a lot of rural auto dealerships and also some of the major metropolitan areas. And they're moving more into the metro areas now.
Right.
They're trading at 12 times. They've kind of bounced off their lows here. They got really cheap a couple weeks ago when everybody thought, no one's ever going to buy a car again. They're Zach's rank number 3 right now, but they pay a dividend, something I like Lithia a lot. What other areas would you actually buy any of the automakers right now?
I would. I still think, okay, so we've got a Zach's rank number 3 hold on Ford and GM.
Okay.
And that's, obviously these numbers are pretty recent here for February. And they just come out today?
Today,
Yeah.
on March 1st, as we're recording this.
So analysts have not had a chance to digest that and make any meaningful moves on their earnings estimates right now. So I think you're going to see a little uptick on the GMs and the Fords of the world. Plus, again, since they've already sold off a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you're more conservative overall, given the kind of the market that we're in, if you're more on the bearish side of things, I don't think you're going to go wrong if you have a longer time frame and you buy one of these, the Fords or the GMs.
Yeah.
Because if you want to roll the dice a little bit and you're looking for some growth, I think that the big growth, we're always looking a few years out, right? So everybody's going to hate me, but you still got to look at Tesla.
Okay.
Because this Model 3 is happening.
I know. I keep seeing pictures.
They're going to take pre-orders starting in April, I think, which is next month. And it's supposed to come here in, 2017, which sounds like it's far away, but it's just a year away. And they're hoping to, make 500,000 Teslas a year. And at $35,000 for an electric car that is super nice on the inside and looks great on the outside and is going to have, a 400-mile range or whatever it's going to be, it's a Henry Ford moment.
Okay.
So there's that.
A lot of people forget Tesla.
Yeah, well, because you don't want to pay, a ton of money for it. But, that's sold off too a little bit with the market.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I still like NVIDIA.
Okay.
And that's kind of a way to play the autonomous cars coming up here.
Right.
Because, you're getting everything. So, of course, they do the graphics processing. I'm always talking about this company. They also they're a leader in virtual reality right now and augmented reality. And they are partnering up with Volvo to put autonomous tech inside of their cars. So it's a way to play the future and get some exposure to that sort of growth in the sector and not necessarily get bogged down just in kind of the numbers that we might see over the next year or so.
We didn't really mention because we've been mainly talking about North American sales, or at least American sales, with all of these guys. But GM and Ford, obviously, are worldwide, and it seems like Europe is doing a lot better. I've seen some numbers coming out of them that they're expecting a higher sales than last year. I'm not sure if last year was a record for them or not, but it was a little over 20 million cars, I believe, and they're expecting a little bit boost again this year. So it's not a bad play, I don't think, to get into some of the big makers, because it's not just an American story. I mean,
Right.
it's low gas prices everywhere.
Right.
And people also have older cars. I mean, Europe, they've had, economic problems for a couple of years. They're starting to come out of it seems. And they want to buy new cars too.
Sure.
So I feel like some of those plays are pretty good, just globally.
Yeah. I mean, you could start to see. Well, I know Ford for one. They released the Mustang in Europe this year, which they hadn't done before. They put the 4-cylinder out there.
Wow. It looks the same?
Yeah.
Huh. How is
Yep.
that selling?
I don't have the exact sales
Okay,
numbers on
okay.
that, but they've had some positive response. I know
That's
from the
interesting.
Mustang over there, because that's kind of a sought after, iconic name. So
Yeah.
I think once that we have to see what happens once the novelty kind of wears off of like, oh, there's a Mustang in Europe. They've had success with their the Ford Focus over there for
Oh
a
my
while.
gosh, yeah.
So
a
that's
big
fun
seller.
for those Europeans, like those little hot
Yeah.
hatches that they call it, those little smaller cars. And then the other thing is, is Volkswagen going to rebound here?
Right. That's another big story too.
Yeah,
We didn't even talk about them. I didn't see their February sales actually here in the US. I don't know how those were. It hasn't been good the last couple months.
The company still has a lot of stuff they have to work out with,
Yeah.
the diesel emissions scandal going on. We still have them as a 4, a cell, a Zach's Rank 4 cell. So it's something you want to keep an eye on it. And they're trading like 28. I know the 52-week low is 22. So they could be kind of coming out of the worst of it, but you never know. You could be a
Right.
week away from a ruling in California or something, and they say, "Oh, you owe us, $50 billion."
Right. Right.
So
right.
there's a lot of event risk on the table with Volkswagen,
Okay.
but
So we'll stay
other
away from that
automakers
one.
are eating up at their market share,
Right. Exactly.
which is good
Um,
for them.
Since you brought up NVIDIA, I'll bring up one other. What do you think about like a Harman here? They do the sound systems mainly for luxury cars, I believe, or
Yeah.
luxury autos.
Yeah, I know Kevin Matris loves the Harman.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like that was a year ago. I think I'd feel better about Harman.
Okay.
Now it's like, okay, we've got it. We know that they've expanded and they've been in these cars, and that was part of the kind of the upgrades we were talking about, where now these cars have this multimedia system built inside of them. So I think maybe some of that's already priced in, and
Okay.
that might not be a growth engine moving forward.
Okay. So these are some good stock tips. I'll give out the tickers here for those who are interested in researching them some more. We talked about Lithia. Their ticker is LAD. And Lear, their ticker is LEA. We had Tesla, TSLA. NVIDIA, NVDA. GM is GM. And Ford, they still F, right? Just F for Ford. So, there's a lot of ways to play the auto sector, and I'm still really bullish here.
Yeah, I think anytime the market's expecting bad news and you get good news, that's good for the underlying stocks.
Okay. If you want to read anything more about what Dave thinks about autos and everything else, you can check out his articles on Zacks.com. You can also listen to any of our prior podcasts here on Zach's Market Edge. And I know Dave and I have covered some other interesting topics, including sneakers/gym shoes. So that was another interesting one. We might have to revisit that one.
Wearing Jordan 1 in the cool gray right now as we speak.
Oh boy. Oh no. We can't go on that one. But you could check out that discussion also on the podcast. And you can find those on soundcloud.com or also on Zacks.com, or you can find us on iTunes. So until next week.